TeenSpeak, empowering today's youth. TeenSpeak explores the unique strategies and stories of amazing young people from around the globe who are pushing boundaries, overcoming adversity, and achieving greatness. The guests share their personal stories of success, resilience, and courage with an infectious dose of inspiration to help encourage our listeners to create the life they desire. Your hosts, Keith Senzer and Antwaun Thompson, are youth empowerment and leadership coaches that have dedicated themselves to helping teens find their true north by educating, supporting, and inspiring them.
Well. Welcome to TeenSpeak, empowering today's youth. How you doing today, Keith?
I am wonderful. How are you, my friend?
I'm always good, man. I'm always good, especially when we get on here and chit chat. Even though we're states away from each other, but it's always nice to talk with you.
It's the beauty of Zoom.
Yeah, exactly right. Hey, so this is TeenSpeak, empowering today's youth, and this is a podcast where we just love to. We have guests, teen guests on, but in our, I guess you call hiatus of having teen guests on, we're getting on and talking about topics that are really important to not just kids, but also the parents, and helping develop the chemistry, relationships, and bonds that really kids and parents really want to build off of. And today we're talking about reactions and assumptions. And we were talking last week about some things that we wanted to talk about. And Keith, you brought this up first, and I'd love for you to share a little bit why you thought this is really important for us to talk about.
Sure. Well, I'm a big believer in the power of the pause. There's that split second when we get triggered by something. And, in that split second, if we could take a chance to pause, we could change the trajectory of an outcome, right? Or a conversation. And oftentimes we don't take that pause, we just react. And in many cases that doesn't lead to a good outcome, right? Somebody's upset with us, we say the wrong thing, or we even in a, not with a person, but like a situation, right? Like we'll do something that later on we'll regret. And there's just something about the power of a pause. And, I thought it'd be good to really drive the point home why the pause is so important and how it can change your trajectory. And also talk a little bit about, what does that look like for a teen? And also, what does that look like for a parent, right? Because I think a lot of times as parent, me being one of two kids, there's definitely times where I didn't take that pause and I'm like, I can't believe I just did that, right? So
yeah,
lesson learned, but if we can learn it the easier way than the hard way, it's a much better way to learn it, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other part that's really important too is there's so many different dynamics associated with that, that pause in kids' lives. There's there's pressures from there's peer pressures, academic pressures, and kids are wanting to not only please themselves and their parents, but their emotions sometimes get the better of them. And I think what you're also referring to is it gets to parents as well. And the example you gave, there were times you wish you had kind of taken that pause, but that's a process of raising kids too, as you learn from those experiences.
For sure. And emotional regulation, right? A lot of reactions are triggered. And listen, with especially with teens, I mean, hey, actually with adults too, right? We've talked about this before, but with everything going on in social media and way things are curated to trigger you, if you don't learn to look to have some critical thinking skills and look through things, and really what it's really about, to me, it's all about asking questions, right?
Yeah.
We need to ask questions, like, and not just, I'm not just talking about like social media, just anything. I'm going to shut my door because my dog just walked out. And
okay, yeah, you're good.
I don't want all the background noise.
Yeah, you're good.
When I talk about questions, I'm more referring to, I always share this example because this is a great story. And I use it in all my, when I do workshops on this and I'm talking about reaction assumptions. This is such a perfect example of why the pause and the thought, and it doesn't relate to a conversation. It relates to a action taking as a result of a conversation, right? And I had these two girls. Actually, I have two examples. I had these two girls in one of my workshops. They were high school seniors, but they told a story about when they were sophomores, and they were really close friends. But when they were high school sophomores, they were, their school had like a pizza place that was like a couple of blocks from the school, so they were allowed out of school to go get lunch. And this girl kept canceling. on her. Like they'd make plans to go, all right, we're going to go Wednesday afternoon. I'll meet you out front at noon. We'll go walk over, grab some pizza and a drink. And, canceled on her. What happened? I'm sorry. Something came up. I can't go. It happened 3 times. And the third time, the other girl was like, I'm done. You are not my friend anymore. It is ridiculous. You're disrespecting my time. I don't want to have anything to do with you. And it turns out this girl ended up in a hospital. She had bulimia and she was struggling with an eating disorder. And, the other girl obviously didn't know, but she made it about herself, right? She was angry and upset that this person blew her off. And, one pause and one question. Okay, time out. Is everything okay? Because this is the third time you've done this to me. What's going on? Like, why do you keep blowing me off? Are you mad at me? Are you upset with me? Is something wrong? One question could have been an opportunity for that girl to be like, I'm actually struggling with an eating disorder. And instead she could have been a place of support. And you know what? We need to talk to your parents and we need to get you help, right? Like, one pause, one question. And instead of asking a question, nothing. Right. And this girl they ended up becoming really close again and were good friends by the time I had seen them as seniors. But there was about 1.5 years that went by. They weren't talking to each other.
Wow.
So that's a pretty, extreme but powerful example of like reacting to something without asking questions. And that's why like questions are so important, because questions they lead to curiosity, and curiosity leads to good critical thinking skills. When we just react or take something for face value without really looking into it, oftentimes we're missing a whole another portion of it.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. And I don't think that's extreme. I think it's a perfect example. Sometimes you got to give those extreme examples to really realize how simple the solution could be or potentially be in that situation. I mean, as you were telling them, like, wow, first thing I'm thinking is, again, emotion, right? I'm like, yeah, somebody cancels on me 3 times and you don't really give me a reason. Yeah, I'm going to probably take offense to it. That's a natural reaction, right?
Sure.
But to take an extra minute, go, we're really good friends. It's very odd for her to do that. And why would she do that and not tell me? I probably should ask that question. But again, like you said, not taking that pause and not asking that question led to them not talking to each other for 1.5 years. The silver lining is they became friends, probably closer friends because of that. Yeah, I'm assuming just based on her probably finding out later. But that's a great example. Great example. You say you had another one?
Yeah, I mean, so this is a different kind of example. It's more about the assumptions we make it by people on face value without really asking questions or just assuming. So I did another workshop, and this is it's actually a cute story. I don't like to label people, but just for the sake of the story, I want to, just so I can drive the point home. So we were doing a workshop, and in the workshop, one of them, there was this girl, was a 17-year-old girl. She was literally a supermodel. Beautiful, beautiful girl. Sweet, beautiful girl. And also in the workshop was your quote unquote nerdy dorky kid, right?
Okay.
Like literally the glasses with the tape, right? Like, I'm not trying to stereotype, but like literally, right? That's one of the other kids in the workshop. And we were talking about relationships, right? And, mutual respect for one another in relationships. And I asked the question, I said, is anybody here? And we talk about communication styles. I said, is anybody here in a relationship? Does anybody have a boyfriend, girlfriend here? Because I wanted to get into the whole idea of like how they communicate, and do they speak their mind, and do they say how they feel, or do they hide it because they don't, like that was really the gist of the conversation. And this girl doesn't raise her hand. So this boy raises his hand and he's like, how do you not have a boyfriend? Right. And I said, well, why you ask that? And he goes, look at her. He goes, she's really nice girl and she's beautiful. How do you not have a boyfriend? I don't understand it. Right. Which was, I thought was pretty bold of him to even put that out there. Right. And like, but he came right out with it. He was like, and I think probably in some way he was probably being demeaning to himself. Like somebody like me would never, like, but how do you not? Right. I think that's kind of where his head was in the moment. And by the way, sweet boy too. Right. And like, I wasn't even joking when I said it. Like, this kid had he had the glasses, they were broken. Like I wasn't trying to make it stereotype, because I hate labeling people, but that's how you'd view them if you didn't know anything about them, right?
Right. Right.
Make the long story short, she says, I don't. So I looked at her and I said, what was his name? Spencer. Spencer wants to know why you don't. Do you have an answer? And she's like, I definitely have an answer. And I said, what? And she's like, girls don't like me. I'm like, well, why do you think girls don't like you? I said, because I don't know you that well, other than these 2 sessions you've been in, but you seem like a very, very sweet, caring person. She's like, because I'm pretty. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? She goes, well, because I'm pretty. No, everybody is intimidated by me. Nobody talks to me. Boys don't talk to me. Girls don't want to have anything to do with me. They're jealous. She goes, and I'm actually literally like, I don't have a lot of friends. And he was like shocked. And it led to a whole conversation about assumptions around how we view people. And we just assume, oh, you're beautiful. You must have 1,000 boyfriends. Right. And, you know, and you're kind of like fitting this mold of like what society calls a nerd. So you must have none. Right.
Right.
So I said to her, I said, if this guy right here, if Spencer asked you out on a date, would you go? Right. And she's like, 100%. And he goes, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, okay, will you go out with me? And she says, yes. These 2 went out for like 6 months. Okay.
Wow. Wow.
So, you know, this kid's walking into school the next day thinking he's king, right? Like, you know, my God, like and when I tell you, this girl was absolutely gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, you know, but completely alone, no friends, nothing. Like she was so beautiful that she was isolated. But just another example of how we make assumptions about somebody, right? So the reason I say that is you walk into the cafeteria and you see this girl or this boy sitting all by themselves, right? And you're not your gut instinct is that girl's gorgeous. Like she's probably just her friends probably aren't around, or she's, you know, maybe not. Maybe go over there and be like, hey, you're sitting by yourself. Do you mind if I sit here? Right? Like the assumption we make is, oh, she must be okay, or he must be okay because they're really good looking, and you know they must have a ton of friends and people interested in. And this one over here, you know, doesn't have that look, so you know that's normal. You know, like not really, right? Maybe that other one actually has a lot of friends and is just like literally the only one that's on that has lunch at that period, right? So, and again, this could be adults or college kids, right? It could be at a restaurant. It could be at a bar. It's just, but like you see people and you make assumptions about people without really understanding anything about that person. And oftentimes that leads to, you know, just bad choices or missed opportunities.
Well, you mentioned one word there several times, and I think that it also has a big part to do with making assumptions and that is stereotypes. You know, because people just put people in a box based on appearance, and that ultimately always does one of two things. It prevents something from growing because you don't plant a seed, or you don't drop your walls, or even look into like the young lady you're talking about. You know, she truly fits the stereotype of a beautiful young lady that everybody just assumes, has all these friends and all these boys going after her. And then you got Spencer over here. Yeah. And then you got Spencer on the other side. It's like, man, that dude probably has one friend. It's probably his dog or something like that, but it's about stereotypes. And you made me think of a story. There's a guy years ago, as you're telling the story, talking about Spencer. It's a guy that I befriended. It's just my personality. I just like everybody. Long story short, turns out I was the only friend this guy had, but I never knew that. I'm just kind of a friend of the thing. And years later, his mom told my mom's like, she's so thankful for our friendship because it really helped him, whatever. But he helped me, because I was always taught, hey, don't ever stereotype people. You just interact with people and take what you can or leave what you can, but don't prevent yourself from being who you are because of your perspective or how you assume somebody is going to be.
Yeah, no, it's true. And like also even anger, right? Like anger is not a good emotion. And I don't care if you're right or you're wrong, right? You can be right and have every right to be angry. But when you lash out in anger, it never feels good. It's funny. I was just having a conversation this morning with somebody because we talk about our kids and like hospitality. I used to be in the hotel business for years, right? And I could tell you from an insider's view, right? When I was like the front office manager or the assistant general manager of the hotel before I moved my way up to GM, if I got some guy coming in there or some woman coming in there screaming and yelling at me, I knew exactly. I put up the wall, and it was like, I understand, sir. I'm so sorry for your experience. You're 100% right. I apologize. I wish there was something I can do, but unfortunately, there's nothing I can do. Like, especially if you had to walk somebody to another hotel because he was sold out, right? Because they always overbook because people always no show, and once in a while that happens.
Right.
And I would just put on that stoic face. I pretend empathy and, give them that, make them, I really do empathize with you. I really do understand how you're feeling. I'm really sorry. Unfortunately, I really can't do anything. Right. And eventually they would calm down and go away. And when you used to use that tone, they'd eventually match your tone so that you would get to calm them down. But they'd walk out the door, and in my mind, I'm like, bye-bye. Right. And then I would get the guy that had the same problem that would say to me, or the same girl that had the same problem say to me, oh my God, you're walking me. Yeah, I'm really sorry. Like, we were sold out. We always have a few rooms overbooked. It's very normal in the industry. It just turns out everybody showed up tonight. We have a really nice room for you. I'm going to comp it. And you know what? As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you a free night here next time you're back in town. I would never give it to the person yelling. But the person that came in was like, I'm really upset, but I understand. Like, they weren't screaming and yelling. They just wanted to know what happened. I tell them what happened. And then I'm going to throw you a bone because I feel really bad because I feel bad for, man. Like, I have real empathy because you're not acting like a jerk. You're truly, granted, the other person has a right to be angry. But when you lash out on anger at somebody, like, you lash out at me, I'm like, la, 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 la. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to get you out of my face in a calm, efficient manner. But the person that's angry and talks to me with calm and tells me they're angry, I'm going to take care of them. And that's a hotel example, but that's a life example. That's how I treat people. If you treat me with respect, even if you're upset with me, I'm going to hear you and I'm going to try to make it right. If you come at me yelling and screaming because you're angry about something, I'm just going to be like, all right, dude, like, get it out of your chest. We're done. And that's truly how I feel. And that's how most people will respond to that.
Yeah, and I think that's how you have to do it. And I love the part you mentioned. At some point, people will match your energy if you keep your composure, and it's a natural reaction to want to lash out. But this is a lesson, like you mentioned, not just for kids, but for parents too. I mean, yeah, kids push their parents to limits, and parents push their kids to limits. But it's all about understanding sometimes, and then it goes back to your point early on about questions. Case in point. Parents want what's best for their kids. So the kid may not get what they want, but the kid is always able to go, but is there a reason why I can't? And if a parent goes, because I said so, well, that's probably going to create more emotion outbursts from the kid as opposed to, well, I think it's just best for you right now because it's something we can address later. Now that leaves the door open, but also it allows that teen to walk away going, okay, I was listened to. I didn't get what I want now, but I could potentially get it later. And I wanted to touch one other thing. You mentioned a story you were giving. I have one example from the opposite perspective where it was when I was GM at this country club, and this one guy, every 2 months they had a group dinner. And he was the member who was over it all, and he was never happy. He always complained about something. And my response was like yours. I apologize. I'm really sorry, and we planned the next month. He'd make sure, like, yeah. And we'd made sure what he wanted was done, but he'd always find something else. So it was always really nice, whatever. Well, it was a couple of years later doing it. I come into my office one day, Keith, and there's a bottle of spirits with a note underneath of it. And it was him going, I didn't realize how hard your job was and how much you have to go through and how much you put up with. So I just wanted to thank you and appreciate what you do. So that's just another example of people when they stop and look and go, hey, you know what? Wow, this guy's really taking a lot from me. And if he's taking it from me, how many other people are doing that to him? And then he recognized that. And that was his way of, peace offering, if you will.
Bob, I respect the hell out of that, right? Like, owning your actions and realizing, like, you know what, I need to be better, and
Right.
making that effort. I mean, that's a great story about the human experience, right? And like,
Yeah.
recognizing. That's great. It's funny. Like when you talk about communication, right? It's really, that's the other thing. It's all about like how people communicate, like, I say this with kids and parents. Like when I talk to teens, they'll talk to me how frustrated they are. My parents are this and my parents are that. And I'm always like, you need to understand something, right? And by the way, look, there are definitely situations where they're not good parents, right? They're bad parents, meaning I don't mean
Yeah.
bad, like they don't like they're doing things to their kids they shouldn't be doing, like emotional distress and like bad stuff. But most of the
Right.
kids that I work with, that's not the case, right? And I tell them, your parents are anxious. Parents get anxiety too. You have anxiety, right? Parents get anxiety too. We love our kids. We're worried about our kids. We want what's best for our kids. And sometimes we don't realize as parents that we're putting on our anxiety on you with our actions. And of course, you're naturally going to shut down and be triggered. And that's a normal reaction for you. But it's really important as a teen to understand, like, if your parents are nagging you or your parents are on you, they're not doing it because they want to intentionally make you feel bad or shame you or judge you. They don't feel that way at all. They're probably doing it because they're nervous or anxious. And if you don't explain to them how that is making you feel, they're thinking it's okay. They're just thinking that's the dialogue. Doesn't make it right, but that's often the case. And when I say that to teens, they'll say, well, what do I do? I'm like, you need to talk to your parents. And you need to say to your parents, hey, listen, can we talk? Right? What do you want to talk about? Like, remember this happened the other day, and you tell them, look, when that happens, this is how I feel. I know you're worried about me. I know you're concerned about me. I know you're anxious about this, but when you get like that, it makes me more anxious,
Yeah.
So can we find a different way to communicate when you're feeling that way so I can respond in the way that is better for both of us? Because I just get triggered and then I get upset and then we get in a fight. And I know you mean well, but at that point, I don't care. I'm so angry and upset about the way it came down. Like, imagine having that conversation with parent. My son, by the way, does that all the time. He has ADHD, and sometimes like he can be frustrating because he's very he's he has some ways of being very black and white in his thinking.
Hmm.
And I need a little more flexibility for him to understand where I'm coming from, and he just won't. And like, I will catch myself, I'll like lose it on him, right? And he'll say to me, why are you yelling at me? Like, if I just, this is how I feel. Can we just talk about how I feel? And I'm like, oh my God, you're so right. And then we talk about it. And he always comes around to where I'm coming from. He's like, you know what? You're right. Like, I see where you're coming from. I guess I wasn't seeing it that way. But like, he's so emotionally triggered. He can't come off of that, out of that space. And I need to calm down so he can calm down so we can have that conversation. And instead, he triggers me, I trigger him, he triggers me, and we trigger each other. And then we don't have
Yeah.
a conversation, and it's bad. So
Yeah.
sorry to be so long-winded about that, but my point is, it's really
No.
important for teens to learn how to say to your parents, hey, can we talk about this? Like, this really triggered me. But also for parents, understand, if your teen's acting in a way they're upset, they're emotionally charged, it's usually not what you think it is. They might be lashing out because of something that happened, but that reaction is because something else really happened. So, if they react to something you said to them and they're mad, yeah, they're mad about what you said, but they're really mad about that kid that, pushed them in the hallway or embarrassed them in front of their friends. That's what's really bothering them. And if
Bothering
you
them.
can get to
Yeah.
that, that's where the real problem lies. And as parents, sometimes we forget that and we just react to the behavior, and we have to really ask the questions, right? Like you said, because,
Yeah.
hey, are you okay? Like, you seem upset. I know it can't just be because of what I just said. What's going on? You seem upset. Did something happen today? Often that's all they need to hear. And they'll open up and all of a sudden you realize what's going on. But we don't always
Yeah.
do that as parents. We react to the reaction.
Well,
So
I'll ask you as a parent. So here's my question. Would you define that, or yeah, would you define that as that protection instinct of a parent sometimes, when we're not willing to, but not able to initially receive any feedback, when you want to just make that decision for your child because you want what's best for them?
I think sometimes, I mean, me personally as a parent, I'm big on failure. Um, I'm not afraid to let my kids fail. In fact, like, I hate to see them fail. It breaks my heart. But like, I let them fail a lot because the lesson is powerful.
Hmm.
I think when we don't let them fail and we do, they call them snowplow parents or helicopter parents, right? Like when you do that, you're definitely, you might be helping them in the moment, but when they're off on their own now, and those same scenarios happen where they fail, like now they're really failing because they're not emotionally, they don't have the emotional strength or the resilience or the grit to overcome that. If you can let them, if you can be there to support them and prop them up when they do fail, they build that resilience and that grit. So, but yes, to answer the question, I think that oftentimes with parents, right, they're protecting. They don't want that. And listen, it's hard. I get it. I love my kids. They are my life, right? I will do anything for my kids. I will take a bullet for my kids, right? Like I will do anything for my children because that's how important they are to me.
Yeah.
But it's hard watching them struggle. And but I let them struggle because I know they need to struggle to grow. And I think that a lot of parents struggle with that. It's not easy. And when they protect, that is the reason, but you're not really serving them. You're actually hurting them.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. You mentioned something else too. I think is a great thing for us to kind of elaborate on it too. Is when your kids kind of are a little standoffish or they need that privacy, or they're in their rooms a lot, and parents are thinking they're being difficult. Many times that's just them needing their space, just like parents need their space from kids. Like when they're after a long day of work, they just need to kind of decompress, if you will. And a lot of parents sometimes think that their kids being in their rooms with the door closed is them just being isolated, not want to be around people. But going back to what the general topic here is, asking questions and not prying too much, but respecting that space. I think that parents just need to understand it's just like they're just a younger version of you. You need your space. They need their space.
Yeah. And, also it's different generation, right? Like you and I, when we were done with our homework, we went outside to play ball. There was not much else to do, right? Or we played catch or tag or whatever the hell we did, right? But we didn't have a lot. There was, we had ColecoVision, which, by today's standards, not very good graphics. But
No.
like these kids now, like they play online and they're talking and they're on Discord and they're wearing the headphones and they're interacting. But we're not used to that. One thing with my son, he knows. And you said the same thing. I always use this as an example because he's a great example because he does exactly that a lot. But the one deal that we have, I always tell him is like, here's the deal. I'm not going to bother you in your room. I'm never going to like give you grief about being in your room. I know you need your space. But when I hear you in there a long time, I'm going to knock. I'm going to ask you if everything's okay. And if everything's not okay, I need you to tell me everything's not okay. And that's why you need the space. You don't even have to talk about what's going on if you don't want to. But I need to know, are you in there because you're playing video games, or are you hiding from something? And if you're hiding for something, I need to know because if you're in there for 2 or 3 days, then we got to talk about it. And I want to make sure they're not dealing with depression or something's really heavy going on. So I have that thing with my son, and he knows, and he'll say, "Dad, I'm good. I'm just taking his own." And sometimes he'll be like, "I had a rough day. I'll talk to you later. I just need some me time right now." Okay, right? Like it's all about dialogue, man. If we treat our kids with a little more trust, I don't want to say treat them as adults because they're not adults yet many times, right? And they're not ready to be adults. But if we just treat them with a little more trust and adult mannerisms, things like that, show them trust, give them the space, let them know we're there, but not pry. I think many times they will always come around to working with us.
Yeah.
The ones that don't, that's why we need to ask the questions. Because if your kid's always in there and always seems, yeah, I'm fine, and they never talk, that's when you have to say to yourself, something might not be right. I need to figure something out here.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's important for the work that you and I do. It's important too, because just like you said, a lot of part of that was sometimes kids don't feel comfortable. They don't have the relationship with their parents where they feel like they can open up and share what's bothering them, because unfortunately, some parents view whatever may be troubling a kid as a weakness. Hey, you can't deal with that, grow up or something to that effect. But like you said, they're still growing. They're kids. So they're going to go through things that they don't understand. And what they need sometimes is an ear or a shoulder to cry on, or sometimes it's just a sounding board. But either way, be whatever it is that they need at that time. And that is just your foundation for building a strong relationship, and then dialogue. And ultimately, like the example you're talking about with Brett, hey, sometimes he's like, yeah, I'm good. I just need a little extra time here. Then he's good. But if it goes on too long, you're going to get a little concerned. It's like, hey, do you need any help resolving whatever issue it may be? But at least you're aware, and he's made you aware of where he is mentally or emotionally or wherever it may be.
Yeah. And it's communication styles too, right? Like you have to know your kid's communication style and yours. Like, for example, if you're, I don't know, I'm not trying to stereotype, but I'll use an example. Like you're a criminal prosecuting attorney, right? You probably got like a very like aggressive mannerism, right? Not, I shouldn't say all, that is very stereotype, but I'm just using an example. That's what you do. You're like, you do these high end cases. You're very, very aggressive in your approach, right? You might be that way in your conversation, not aggressive in a mean way, but like direct. I say what's on my mind. This is what I'm going to tell you. This is what I expect, right? Like you have that aggressive kind of way in your communication style, right? And then your child is kind of like non-aggressive, right? Very passive. Well, somebody passive reacting to somebody aggressive is going to take that as an attack, even though that person being aggressive, they're not trying to be aggressive towards that person. It's their nature. They talk with their hands. They're loud. They say it. They speak fast. Like, this is it. This is how I talk, blah, 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 blah. And that person's kind of like, whoa, 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 right? Like, if you don't understand, and by the way, this goes to anybody, adults talking to adults. When you talk to somebody, if your child's passive and you're aggressive, right off the bat, you need to be like, okay, I cannot be aggressive when I talk to a passive person. I need to be more balanced, right? I can be direct.
Right.
But I need to be direct without being aggressive, right? And that passive person has to understand my mom or my dad's they have an aggressive personality, but I have to understand when they're telling me something, they're not attacking me. They're just very direct in their approach. And I just have to understand that's how they communicate, right? Because when you understand the other style, right? And then there's passive aggressive, right? Like somebody who's passive aggressive talking to somebody else that's passive aggressive, that's like a recipe for disaster because you're both kind of like hinting, these nasty little comments at each other because the real underlying thing is there, right? It's like that's no good either. Like, so I mean, there's studies on this, but understanding who you're talking to. So as a parent, who they are, as a child, who's your parent? How do they communicate? Because when you understand how they communicate, that's makes a big difference because once you understand that, it takes away okay, they're not being this way because they're this. This is just how they communicate. Once you understand there's a reason why, that aggressiveness doesn't have the same impact. The other thing, great advice for kids, when you have that ongoing thing with a parent, that's a problem that just doesn't go away. You keep trying, but it's just not there. Write them a letter. Write your parents a letter. Write something, hey, I know we try to talk, but every time we have this conversation, we always get in a fight because I feel like you're so emotionally charged by what I'm saying. You're not hearing me. So I wrote this so you have time to really absorb what I'm saying. And after you've had time to read this and think about it, maybe we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
Powerful, powerful thing. When a parent gets a letter, wow, we're like, wow, I am really not being a good parent right now. I am being way too aggressive. I am way, way too triggered, and I'm not giving this child what they need. Like sometimes we need the smack in the head of the wake-up call. That's a great way to give one and be respectful about it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I never thought about that. Writing a letter. Usually you hear about kids writing a letter, just writing things down to get them off their chests and stuff like that. But yeah, that would be one of those things. And I bet you a parent that gets a letter like that reads it more than once because it hits so hard. You're just thinking about it. I'm like, if my son or daughter wrote me a letter, it's like, hey, you don't listen to me when we talk. So I would feel about that big. I'd feel so small going, here I am supposed to be a protector and somebody for my child to look up to, and they feel as though we can't have a conversation. That should be a wake-up call in general. Forget about what's on paper. The fact that they had to write it should be the wake-up call, and then add to it what's on that paper. That should really bring them home and bring it full circle. And it should only take one letter. Should never have to be done more than once.
Right.
You would hope.
Oh, you would hope. Yeah. And look, the truth is we live in a very busy world. Things are not so simple. There's so much input. Like we always talk about social media with kids, but it's adults too. I mean, a lot of adults, right, that are in business, whether they own their own business or they work for somebody, right? Like social media is a thing, posting and sharing experiences and sharing advice, right? That's how you get followers and clients. And so, we all live in a busy world. And when we're busy, listen, I will share this with you. I mean, my story, but like just Perfect example, right? I have a daughter who's been disabled for 16 months, who I'm still taking care of. I have a wife who has concussion because she got hit by an 18-wheeler. I'm still trying to take care of her. I have a kid trying to find a job right now who I've been trying to help. And I have a cousin who's in hospice right now, is probably going to pass away very soon, right? I got to think about my clients, and I'm going to have to fly to Atlanta, but I got to take my daughter to post-op, and I can't leave my wife alone. And my son still, hello, like I'm in the circus juggling plates. But you know what? I still have trained myself that when my kids ask me something, I stop for that just minute. That pause comes. Like they ask me and I want to be triggered. Like, I can't deal with this right now. Like, I'm so busy. And I pause. What do you need? And I'll say, I can't do it right now. Can you give me 5 minutes? And always take your time, Dad. Right. But like, it took me a while. Like at the beginning, I would get constantly, because I'm running around. I got to take care of Sherry. I got to take care of Brett. I got to take care of Jessica. I'm worried about my cousin. I'm calling my aunt. I'm calling my uncle, right? Like it's a lot. But at the end of the day, the pause is so important, because without that pause, I think I'd be in a bad place right now, because I'd be so stressed out about everything going on in my life. And then to add to it, I'd be stressed about all the arguments or fights or negative emotion that I'm putting out there to the people I love. So I don't, it's hard, but I don't. But I've figured out this system. And by doing that, my kids have figured me out. Like they know I'm in a podcast with you right now. If they need something, they ask each other for help, or they'll text me and be like, I know you're in a meeting when you get out. Like, it's just, we've managed to figure out this way we can all exist together, and they're able to help me juggle the plates so I don't drop any. So what about other parents working 2 jobs, working 3 jobs, working 1 job that takes 80 hours out of their week. Right. And, mom or dad has to come home and still do laundry and still figure out dinner and whatever. Right. Like we're juggling so much as parents, and it's hard. Sometimes we get triggered. Like we're human, man. Like we can only take so much, and sometimes things trigger us. And that pause is so important, because if we can learn to react after the pause, we're so much better. And when we don't make assumptions about what we see, and we take that pause and we ask questions, it's always going to lead to a better outcome every single time.
Yeah. So not to diminish all that you say you're going through, but I'd love to encompass all that in one statement. And what I took from all that, it was when you mentioned it was all the things you were going through when your wife or your son, your daughter, whomever may be, comes and asks you a question. And I'm thinking from a parental perspective, the fact that they can still come and ask, that should speak volumes of how much respect they have for you, which warrants that pause, right? You got all that. It's like, but this is a person I know I can go to. This is a person I know I can trust. This is a person I know I can count on. They may not be able to give me what I want, but they can give me the feedback or direction or guidance that I need to get where I want to be. That is what I got from what you just shared. And that's huge.
I appreciate that, because I didn't even think about that. Yeah. I appreciate that.
That speaks volumes for how much respect they have for you. But it also carries a step further, and you're a perfect example. What parents need to understand is they're valued more than they realize, and they don't leave those lines of communication open, they're going to miss opportunities like what you're talking about, what you were just describing. I mean, that's what, and I hope a lot of dads and moms are listening to this, but that's what it takes. Parenting is not easy, but it's a responsibility that you took on when you had kids. You're like, hey, I'm going to protect them. You said it earlier, your kids are your world, and you do anything for them. Well, you're literally doing it, literally every day. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there. But
I appreciate
that's what
that,
I got out of that.
If you don't want them, don't have them.
Right.
I mean, it's a hard job for sure.
Yeah.
But, I think too, what you said, something triggered for me to think about, like, just also, like the whole communication piece, right? And asking the questions and all that, like what it really does is, you're modeling everything for them anyway. So when I learn, and by the way, like I am by no means the perfect parent. I get in yelling matches with my son all the time. Sometimes I snap at my daughter because it's like, Dad, can you give me my meds and get me water? And then I do. And then I go sit in the office. Hey, can you make me lunch? And then I make a lunch. And then I'm like, can you effing tell me one time so I can do everything at one time instead of making me get up? Right? Like I'm human, right? I lose it too.
Yeah.
But I think the difference is, like, because this is what I do for a living, like I catch myself a lot and I'm like, I'm sorry. Like do me a favor next time. But anyway, my point is, as parents, it's a really hard job. And, I think our kids respect us no matter what, because we're their parents, that it just comes with the position. And when we can learn to pause and temper our reactions to them, not only do we earn more of their respect, but we're really teaching them what that looks like. So when they get triggered, it's an opportunity for us to say, hey, pause.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
see me pause, right? I need you to
Yep.
pause right now. Pause, think, and then let's talk about it. And and my point before was like, we're so busy. We as parents don't always have time to like think through the process. We react to because we're busy, and it's really, the pause is powerful. Like if we can learn and practice that pause, like I always say, like when somebody says something to you, take a deep breath before you speak. Anybody, always, it's okay. People don't like silence. People are uncomfortable with silence, but that moment of silence is the difference, right? So when somebody says something, to just be like, and then respond. You can say to your kids, okay, listen, right? And have the conversation, because when you come home from work after a long, stressful day, and now you first have to make dinner and figure out this and that and get them ready for bed and blah, 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 no matter how old they are, it's real hard not to react.
Yeah.
But
Because
we have to learn to.
they don't know what you're bringing home.
Yeah, but we have to learn. We have to learn to set that example, because one day they're going to be out there in a stressful job, in a stressful relationships, whatever they're dealing with. And, if we can teach them how to react the right way, it is incredibly powerful lesson that we're teaching them. And if they can take that into their adult life, their relationships are going to be stronger. Their work relationships are going to be stronger. Their stress level, the way they look at life and the way they handle what's happening to them, like we're setting them up for tremendous success.
Yeah, lead by example. I mean, that's what we're all about, and that's why we're doing this as well. But this is just one of several topics we're going to be talking about over the next few weeks, and we probably could go for hours. But you got appointments to get to, I have appointments to get to, and just wanted to reach out and let everybody know if you have a teen or preteen that would love to be a guest on here, some things they're going through, maybe something we talked about today. Would love for you to be a guest on the podcast with Keith and I. We both have a form on our website. Mine is CoachTsCorner.com, and Keith is ShiftYourPower.com. Fill that out. Have you on here and talk about whatever you want. This is a safe space to talk about whatever you want. The only thing we don't really get into is politics.
That's right. Definitely not. No politics here.
No politics.
Dangerous territory.
Yeah, man. It's like kaboom.
We're about positive stuff in the world.
Yeah, it's all about positivity of what we're doing. And as always, Keith, man, it's always a pleasure to get on here and talk with you. And another great conversation, and look forward to doing it again real soon.
Likewise, my friend. Take care, everybody.
All right. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Are you looking for an experienced youth empowerment and leadership coach to help your teenager find their true north? Look no further. Let Coach Keith and Coach T show you how, through education, support, and inspiration. Visit their websites, ShiftYourPower.com and CoachTsCorner.com, respectively, to learn more about the services they offer and to book a session today.